Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, good friend Amanda Suffecool. You know Amanda from Eye on the Target Radio, and she hosted us while we were down in Florida. And so she's on here quite a bit. Amanda, thanks for joining us again today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Paul. Thanks very much.
So let's I'm going to explain to listeners or viewers, as the case is for this show. This is going to be a long one. I do not think we're going to be able to get everything we want to get in 30 minutes. And so we're going to, what my plan is, I've got loaded up on my other computer right over here, the White House feed of President Biden's talk today, where he announced all his executive orders and announced who he's nominating for the AFT department. So for the rest of us, it's ATF. But we'll be getting it. What I plan on doing is going bit by bit, cut by cut. And then we're not going to give you the whole thing. The whole thing is 35 minutes, 44 seconds. We're going to give you about 5 to 10 minutes of it, but we're going to be talking about it. So your comments are always welcome. I will put them up if they are appropriate as we're talking about it. But this is going to have a whole different look to it because we're actually going to be going toe-to-toe, so to speak, with Joe Biden. He would never come on the show, so we're bringing him. All right, and just for anybody who may be listening from the White House, guess what? White House is public domain. I get to use it. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's get started. I'm going to bring up the feed, and we're going to start up. There's old Joe ready to spew his
wisdom.
Yes, at us. All right, here we go.
But what is actually a public health crisis. Nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment. They're phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights at stake from what we're talking about. But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. We call it freedom of speech. From the very beginning, you couldn't own any weapon you wanted to own. From the very beginning the Second Amendment existed, certain people weren't allowed to have weapons. So the idea is just bizarre to suggest that some of the things we're recommending are contrary to the Constitution.
Okay, we're going to stop it right there. I'm going to bring back up Amanda and I. Nothing he's going to propose is against the Second Amendment. And from the very beginning, you couldn't own anything you wanted to. Well, if you believe in King George was right in April of 1775, I guess you're right, Joe, because that was the Battle of Lexington and Concord when the British were coming after the colonists' privately owned cannons, cannonballs, and powder. The Battle of Lexington Concord, the shot heard around the world that started the Revolutionary War, was not about muskets of any variety. It was about the cannons. And yeah, from time to time, there have been times when certain people could not own firearms. I'm thinking the blacks, anybody who was black in post-Revolutionary War era, or maybe the Indians during the Indian Wars. They were outlawed from having firearms. They could only have bow and arrow. Amanda, what do you want to fire off on that part?
I'm going to say that there was very little. I mean, there were a couple small regulations that were in local municipalities prior to 1934. I think that there was actually like two different national bills, and one of them was making small guns illegal at one point. But other than that, No, and when he's like, there was certain people that were restricted. You're right. It was by segment based on ethnicity. It wasn't about actual you did something and a recourse. Then because it was 1968 before they added that criminals, someone who has paid their debt to society, comes out of jail and cannot own a firearm. And so prior to that, it was you were picked out for the color of your skin, for the way that you look, not specifically for an act that you did that you were responsible for.
Couple fast social media comments, and we're already getting them flying in. Our good friend Anthony Calandro, who, by the way, is going to be on Eye on the Target Radio this coming weekend. Amanda is a true warrior. And Charlie Chambers has a great point. Yes, you can yell fire in a crowded theater, and SCOTUS ruled on it. Hey, if the theater is on fire, yell fire.
Exactly.
And I want to take off on that one just a little bit too, and that is this: no amendments are absolute. Does that mean we don't absolutely have the right to be free from illegal search and seizure, or unreasonable search and seizure?
Well, maybe. It's not a laughing matter, but maybe, because that's the direction that they seem to be going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you have the absolute right not to incriminate yourself? No, Joe. They are all absolute. You do have the freedom of speech. You do have the freedom of religion. You do have all the other enumerated rights in the First Amendment. And the Second Amendment, one phrase, dude, shall not be infringed.
Well, the interesting part is where he's saying, that there's some things that you weren't allowed to have. The government actually doesn't say that you can't own your own tank or you can't own your own battleship. They just say that they won't necessarily rent it or lease it from you should they go to war. So no expectation that you are going to profiteer from the U.S. government.
Right. Well, and I think I made a smart aleck comment when you were
just one
when you were mentioning that on your show on Sunday. Yeah, that being the case, I really want to buy the USS Iowa.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, where we go? We're getting so many comments. Charlie Chambers says, bend a wounded knee. The massacre was outrageous. And in California in the late 1800s, the state of California paid to have Native Americans killed. Tens of thousands of Native Americans were killed, a near genocide. That's not something commonly known. That's not something they teach they didn't even teach that in history books in the 80s when I was in high school.
As opposed to the current revisionist history that we're living with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
All right, let's go ahead and we're going to get, let's see here. I'm going to continue on. We got about another 40-second clip here we're going to do of Uncle Joe while I try to get my camera to behave. And my computer to behave.
Violence in this country is an epidemic. Let me say it again. Gun violence in this country is an epidemic, and it's an international embarrassment. We saw it again last night as I was coming to the Oval Office. I got the word that in South Carolina, a physician with his wife, 2 grandchildren, and a person working at his house was gunned down, all 5. So many of the people sitting here today know that well, unfortunately. They know what it's like when the seconds change your life forever.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and stop it there. I don't know that there was a whole lot in that one, in that clip, other than, and he goes on from here to introduce everybody that was in the audience. Everybody there lived through tragedy. I feel for them. I really do.
They brought them there because they lived through tragedy.
Yeah. And but they're going about everything they're trying to do all wrong. Let me
Right. In a perfect world, and we're not perfect by any means, and our world is not perfect,
right.
that they could eliminate guns and then that would eliminate violence. But that's not really the case, because just recently the DC the Capitol situation, where the guy took a knife and a car and murdered one of the Capitol police officers and wounded the other one. And the red shirted mommy said, imagine how bad it would have been if they'd had a gun. Oh, you mean the dead guy would have been more dead?
Right.
I mean, I think it was pretty darn bad the way it was, and the fact that they can find, should they desire to do violence, they can find a tool to do that with.
Yep. A couple of social media comments here before we go on. JA says, gun violence happens in gun-free zones or when law-abiding people are disarmed and can't defend themselves. That's exactly right.
I want to modify that just slightly. How about violence using guns?
Yes.
As opposed to gun violence. I think this is one of those things that we, and sorry, JA, I don't mean to give you a ration of whatever. But we need to take back some of this terminology because they use it against us. And so violence is violence and the tool is the tool. And so when someone gets stabbed with a knife, they don't call it knife violence. When someone gets run over with a car, they don't call it car violence. You know, they just call it violence or murder or homicide or whatever. But should the tool they chose be a firearm, then it becomes gun violence. That's their term.
We're going to be getting to car violence, believe it or not, here in a little bit. But I mean, because he's got some quotes about the numbers of shootings, and I'm going to equate that, but we'll get to that in a bit. Josh says the U.S. is 66th in the world per capita for gun violence. We're not even near the top. And if you were to take, and I used to run an ad, this is so far outdated, it's from 8 years ago, but I used to run an ad for free on the Polite Society podcast. But the vast majority of actual gun, of violence using guns in the United States is gang on gang violence.
Oh yeah, you can narrow it down to 5 municipalities, and you can knock out like 40% of all murders using a firearm if you took the data out of those 5 municipalities.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead, and I've got it queued up for the next section. This one is going to be about 30 seconds long. Let's see what President Biden has to say here.
Purpose and demand that we take the action that gives meaning to the word enough. Enough, enough, enough. Because what they want you to know, what they want you to do is not just listen. Every day in this country, 316 people are shot every single day. 106 of them die every day. Our flag was still flying at half staff for the victims of the horrific murder of 8 primarily Asian American people in Georgia, when 10 more lives were taken in a mass murder in Colorado. You probably didn't hear it, but between those 2 incidents, less than 1 week apart, there were more than 850 additional shootings. 850 that took the lives of more than 250 people and left 500 injured. This is an epidemic, for God's sake, and it has to stop.
Okay, we're gonna stop it there. This is where we get into car accidents. I took the time to look this up. In 2013, the last year, they have published records for this. There were 615 deaths in cars every week in the United States, which is larger than the number he's talking about. when you couple that with what Amanda and I were just talking about, that the vast majority of deaths that were firearms related are gang on gang, we're talking just a tiny fraction of the crimes that were that we could actually do something about. Not only that, the deaths and I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I didn't have time to work them up. However, I'm fairly positive that in there, and these are all tragedies, but in Biden's numbers are included suicides.
They include all of them. They include suicides. They include police officer using a firearm to stop someone who's trying to kill the police officer. Here's an example. When the Boston, remember the I can't say their name, the Boston bomber brothers. Yes. So one of them was shot, and then his brother ran him over with the car as he was trying to escape. And he succumbed to his injuries from being squashed by a car, but he had a bullet hole in him at the same time. When that year, when they were reading the names of all the victims of gun violence, they included his name. So he wasn't shot and killed. He was squashed, but they're still including his name. I mean, and they really looked bad about it, but they'll scoop up any bit of data. I mean, every death is a tragedy. There's no doubt about it. And the question is, what are we doing about it? We have stopped doing things with mental health. We've stopped mental health institutions. We have tried to defund the police officers. We are letting people out of jail that have committed heinous crimes. Heinous crimes. Man, would you think that English is my primary language? I'm not sure. But, and we let them out of jail, and then we wonder why somebody else gets hurt. That's the part that I don't get.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Let me get a couple more comments up here. David Wilcox says both murderers passed criminal background checks, and I know I talked about it this week. I cannot remember where I talked about it. I'm on the air so much, but I think it may have been a show I was on a guest on Tuesday night. I was doing research earlier in the week, and the average time, this is why waiting periods don't work. When they recover a gun at a crime scene, the average time from purchase of gun to recovery at crime scene is, you're never going to believe this, 8.3, not days, not weeks, not even months, 8.3 years between the purchase of a firearm and it being recovered at a crime scene is the average.
Wow, that wait period that we're going to have, that 10-year wait period, is going to be a doozy.
I'm telling you. You know, my father is fond of saying, at my age, I don't even buy ripe bananas anymore, or non-ripe bananas anymore. You got to wonder if you're going to be able to wait out the background check if it's going to be a 10-year one.
Right, I don't know, but yeah.
All right, let's go to, let's see, I'm still at, all right, this one is going to be about 40 seconds long. Let's hear more of President Harris's predecessor.
So I'm here to talk about two things. First, the steps we're going to take immediately. And second, the action that needs to be taken going forward to curb the epidemic of gun violence. I asked the Attorney General and his team to identify for me immediate, concrete actions I could take now without having to go through the Congress. And today I'm announcing several initial steps my administration is taking to curb this epidemic of gun violence. Much more need be done, but the first, want to rein in the proliferation of so-called ghost guns. These are guns that are homemade, built from a kit, that include directions on how to finish the firearm. You can go buy the kit. They have no serial numbers, so when they show up at a crime scene, they can't be traced. And the buyers aren't required to pass a background check to buy the kit, to make the gun. Consequently, anyone from a criminal to a terrorist can buy this kit in as little as 30 minutes, put together a weapon. You know, I want to see these kits treated as firearms under the Gun Control Act, which is going to require that the seller and manufacturers make the key parts with serial numbers and run background checks on the buyers when they walk in to buy that package. The section.
Okay, let's. Whoops, I dropped my paper, and I really don't want to subject you guys to all that time with Biden in front of your face, but ghost guns. We knew this one was coming. Self-manufactured firearms. Let's put it where it really is. Let's face it. It doesn't matter if there's a serial number on it or not. They can still be tracked ballistically. You can track a gun. Was this the gun that fired this bullet? Yes, it was. They can only track a gun to the point of first sale, with the exception of a few states in the United States that have registries. I believe Illinois is one, and I believe New York's another. I don't know who else. But if I were to buy a gun in South Dakota and sell it to my cousin, who I know is a good person, and then they turn around and sell it to their buddy, who they think is a good person, and then they turn around, eventually it could get to somebody who isn't that great of a person. But when they trace that gun back, it's coming to me. And I did no wrong. And by the way, I don't sell guns. I keep them. So, but anyway, this is a total fallacy that you can track guns. You can track them ballistically, but there is no way to track who. We don't have a gun registry in the federal system
yet. And that's where they're headed. That really is where they're headed. And so there's a couple things that are broken in his thought process there. One of them is the ability to trace a gun. So newer guns, yes, indeed, can potentially be traced because they go from the distributor to the gun shop, and they start at the manufacturer, and they'll work their way to it. And frankly, that's one of the reasons why I talk to everybody, all of my students, to say, when you sell a gun, you need to document who you sold it to. You know, you don't have to know everything, but you do have to know that they legally can own a gun and the date of sale and their name, because then you have a record of when it came into your possession and when it left your possession. That's really the end of your responsibility to it. If you want to purchase a gun that has that the trail is just a little less hard to track, you can even buy it at a gun shop. It doesn't really matter. Just buy a used gun, because any used gun, if Paul sold guns, the used gun would have come from the distributor to the gun shop to Paul. And then Paul found something else, like a tiger striped Desert Eagle or something that he really had to have. And so he took 3 other guns back to a gun shop that he'd bought them at one part of the state. He took them to the gun shop at a different part of the state. All of a sudden that chain of custody starts to break down, because he doesn't have to remember which gun shop he sold it to. Mm-hmm. He just has, okay, I sold it, and I sold it May 1st. If they don't know exactly what the gun shop is, then it makes it much harder for that chain of custody. So an older gun that's had multiple owners, that chain of custody is harder. Private one-on-one sales, it only takes 1 or 2 of those before that chain of custody is kind of broken.
Yeah.
So the other part is, buy a gun that was manufactured before 1968. Mm-hmm. They don't have serial numbers, right?
That's right. Absolutely right. Well, if we're going to get the rest of the talk in here, we need to get moving because we're almost half an hour in, and we're not even close to
that's okay.
half of this talk.
We're good.
Well, if we run up towards the top of the hour, because folks, I have to get Amanda out of here by 7:00 her time. So by the top of the hour, if we're close, I'll just highlight and we won't run video. But I think it's kind of fun to debate Joe.
I think it's good.
Yeah. So let's go. This one, next one is just about a minute long. Here we go with this one.
The second action we're going to take. Back in the year 2000, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms released a report on its investigations of firearms trafficking in America. The report was of pivotal value. It was an important tool for policymakers when I was in the Senate and beyond, at all levels, to stop firearms from being illegally diverted into dangerous hands. Today, with online sales and ghost guns, times and trafficking methods have changed, and we have to adjust. We also have to ask the Justice Department to release a new annual report. This report will better help policymakers address firearms trafficking as it is today, not what it was yesterday. The third change, we want to treat pistols.
We'll get back to that in just. I overshot just a little bit. This says to me we're throwing money at it, but we're going to throw money into a department that is heavily skewed and is going to give us data that is just as heavily skewed.
Imagine that. And then when they want to know about gun trafficking, I got 3 words. Operation Fast and Furious.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right. And then he also is trying to forward the message that online gun sales are, it's like Amazon. The Amazon van just pulls up in your front yard and all of a sudden they offload a whole load of guns. It doesn't work that way.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. Prime would have meaning then.
Get your primers from Prime. Hey.
Oh, without the hazmat fee.
All right. Robert Pointer. Great point, man. And Amanda was just talking about that. Does that mean they'll finally investigate Fast and Furious? Our own government. And we've gotten, folks, I'm sorry. Normally I try to get the majority of the comments in. We've already got way over 100. I'm not getting them all in.
He's juggling monkeys over there. He just can't do it.
Because this one's in front of me, I want to get this one up there. Amanda, you rock. Love your show Sunday nights. And Pete has an interesting one here. For what it's worth, I have a poll running, and of the respondents, 65% get their info from presidential speeches from other sources like yours. So good you play some of the actual speech, in my opinion. Very
Thanks,
cool.
Pete.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. And then finally, Wyatt, and I just got to put this up there. That's called the tiger stripe loophole.
I'm telling you, one of these days you're going to hear that he's like, I got it, and then we'll stop talking about it.
All right, let's get to some more of the. Yeah, he's going to be talking about his third point right here, which was arm braces. Here we go.
Modified with stabilizing braces with the seriousness they deserve. A stabilizing brace hook on a pencil essentially makes that pistol a hell of a lot more accurate than a mini rifle. As a result, it's more lethal, effectively turning it into a short-barreled rifle. That's what the alleged shooter in Boulder appears to have done. I want to be clear that these modifications to firearms that make them more lethal should be subject to the National Firearms Act. The National Firearms Act requires that a potential owner pay $200 fee and submit their name and other identifying information to the Justice Department, just as they would if they went out and purchased a silencer for a gun.
Okay. He wants money. That's all that would do. Is it would be $200 per brace. That's it. Because
and then you're headed to the 10-year wait period right there, because
yes, that's true, because it is averaging about a year for an approval for a can.
Right.
But he's not saying make them illegal. He's saying put them under the
make them an income generator.
Yes, because if you can pass a background check, you can buy a machine gun if you've got the $200 to pay for the tax stamp and what it costs for a machine gun. You can buy a silencer, and if you've got the $200 and you're willing to wait the year, it can be yours. The only thing he would be doing by putting this pistol brace in under the National Firearms Act is getting $200 a brace sent to the federal government and a delay, and that would be it. Anything else, Amanda, you want to talk about on that?
No,
one?
I think you made a good point there.
Okay. We got next clip is about 50 seconds.
Fourthly, during my campaign for president, I wanted to make it easier for states to adopt extreme risk protection order laws. They're also called red flag laws, which everybody in this lawn knows, but many people listening do not know. These laws allow a police or family member to petition a court in their jurisdiction and say, I want you to temporarily remove from the following people any firearm they may possess, because they're a danger and a crisis. They're presenting a danger to themselves and to others. And the court makes a ruling. To put this in perspective, more than half of all suicides, for example, involve the use of a firearm.
Okay, we're going to stop it there. Red flag laws. Amanda, I've got a really big rant on this one, so I'm going to let you go first, because I'm going to go off.
I'm going to go off. I'm loaded. Now, it's our audience is gun owners. I mean, they get it. And to me, the big concern about red flag laws is if somebody really is a threat to themselves, taking their guns and leaving them at home means that they can use some other tool. And if they're not a threat to themselves and others, why are you taking their guns? So there is that piece of it. And how many times has a divorce been weaponized against a spouse because they're fighting about the kids, they're fighting about something, and they can use this. And we do not prosecute people who do false reporting. Holly Sullivan did an article from CCDL and talked about the fact that Connecticut has some of the most stringent red flag laws. And they've found that more than 40% of them are false filings, yet no one has been prosecuted for a false filing. No one.
Yeah.
So, okay. Start your rant.
I want to reiterate a little bit what you said. What a extreme risk protection order or a red flag order does is they go to a judge and they say, look, this person's dangerous. They're not dangerous enough that we need to put them in a hospital and evaluate them. We're just going to take their guns. Do you think you might make them a little bit mad when you take their guns? And if they're a little bit unstable and you take their guns and you leave them free, are you going to take their kitchen knives? Are you going to take pickup trucks and gasoline away from them? Are you going to take anything, butcher knives away from them? You're going to not allow them to have access to axes. You are leaving them free and in an extremely irritated state. This is the absolute worst idea I've ever heard in my life. If somebody is dangerous enough that you need to take their firearms away, and there are people out there that you probably should take their firearms away, but you also need to put them through a mental evaluation while you're at it. Because if they're that dangerous, guns are a very effective tool, but they're not the most effective tool at killing people.
Correct.
All right. I'm going to have to take just a second here because the next one, I'm going to jump forward quite a bit before into the, there we go. We're getting close. There we go. Now this is the last one. Here we get to hear about the new federal agency, the AFT.
The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the key agency enforcing gun laws, hasn't had a permanent director since 2015. Today, I'm proud to nominate David Chipman to serve as the director of the AFT. David knows the AFT well. He served there for 25 years. And Vice President Harris and I believe he's the right person at this moment for this important agency.
All right. I think we're going to be spending a few minutes on this, and then the rest. Now we're over 150 comments. The rest of the show is going to be comments, but
let me start with this. Let me start with this piece of it.
Yes.
In 2015, who was in office?
That would have been Obama.
Right. So the Obama-Biden team, right?
Yes.
So he was involved, and they could not put a director in charge of the ATF there.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. So, man, it's a national crime. So, and this guy is, well, I'm not allowed to say those words. My mom told me to stay away from those words. Just insert your own words. You got the gist.
Yeah. By the way, I never got to meet your mother, but I greatly respect her because she didn't like those church women.
Ladies.
Anyway, closed joke. If you know. Anyway.
Don't.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say about this guy is he's currently one of the higher ups in the Giffords group, the people that put out the yearly ranking of A to F, worst states in America to the best states in America get the F. They rank states on their gun control, and they rate the worst states in gun control. You get what I mean. You want to be an F on their list. I wish they would have an F minus so South Dakota could strive to get it. He has been in and around the gun control community for his entire professional career. He did work for the AFT, as Biden puts it. I'm going to call it the AFT for the rest of my life now, just from this. But he did work for the ATF for quite a while and then went straight into working with the Brady campaign and eventually working for the Giffords group. This is, I seen it today. I do not remember where I seen it. This is not mine originally, but I cannot remember who to give credit to. This is exactly like a vegan, putting a vegan in charge of testing the meat quality for
USDA.
USDA.
That's exactly it. So, yeah, I think that really is to end up with an anti-gun person, because there's so much stuff that the ATF is doing right now in redefining that is not legislation, is not litigation. They just change the definition, and all of a sudden you go from fat, dumb, and happy to a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
A non-prosecuted, soon-to-be-prosecuted criminal.
All right. And we've gotten, as of right now, like I said, over 150. I can't do math in my head that fast, but I want to get to a few of them.
Pull them up.
Donna Anthony took the low-hanging fruit that we've already took a stab at, AFT. I'm sure he meant ATF.
Right. Get the F out of there.
Giffords Group, Pete over at Gun Websites, is not a thing. It's brand new. It's about 5 years old, if I remember right. I did the research when I was doing my story here about a month ago.
Right. Yeah,
And
she's been active for a while and in something, and I think they've named it, and then they've named it a couple different things, and they've worked through what it was. And so maybe the entity itself is brand new, that one, but but it has existed in one form or another, and it just keeps kind of morphing.
yes, absolutely. Diane says maybe the new ATF director can teach Hunter Biden not to throw your firearm in a dumpster.
Diane, the best part of that story was the fact that someone else put it in the dumpster or put it in the trash can and then went to the store and said, hey, that gun that I was storing in your trash can, someone took it and I want it back.
Yes. And I hate to be salacious, but I'm going to be anyway. The someone that put it in the dumpster was Hunter Biden's brother's wife, his widow, who he was dating at the time. That's how that family goes. This is really, really important. And Bob, I'm glad you brought this up. Call your senator and oppose this nomination.
That's the call for action, and that is for everyone. So here's a point on that. Call your senator, email your senator. Every contact is a check mark in the pro or the con column. Mm-hmm. So don't spend a ton of time formulating the perfect response because you're going to be a check mark. So just, say on this topic, here's my thought. Boom. Cut to the chase, and then spend your time contacting the other senator or another state senator
I want to take that one step further, Amanda. Your senator has more than one office in your state. Mm-hmm. So, and they also have an office in Washington, D.C. So what I would like everybody to do is call your senator's office, both of them, in Washington, D.C. I don't care what party they belong to. I want you to then call the senator's office in your state that's closest to you. I then want you to call the senator's office in the state that's not so close to you. And then I want you to call the next one. And I want you to go through every office they have, because I will just about guarantee you they don't put your name down. They put a check mark.
You're a check mark. And then send them an email.
If you got an old-fashioned fax machine, I do, but it's a printer fax scanner. I don't have a phone service at my house. But my senator still has a fax line. Mm-hmm. Fax him a letter.
Oh, you can email to fax.
There you go. And then you can, the other thing, get your printer warmed up on your computer, print out a regular letter. Let them know in every way you can know. Give them as many. This is one of the times the old Chicago adage works. Vote early, vote often. Only now you're not voting, you're just contacting. But contact them early, contact them often. You can make yourself into 10 or 12 people if you just keep at it. DJ Plain Ice, thank you. I was just going to look that up. I don't have to do that now, DJ. Thank you. United States Capitol Switchboard, 202 area code, 224-3121. If you call that number, done it myself, you don't need to know your senator's office direct line.
Just know their name.
Or even if you're really far behind, you can just give the operator your zip code.
Well, you've got two senators, so you just give them your state, and it's both of them, because it's from on the national level, your senators cover your state.
Yes, absolutely.
So you belong to both of them.
Yep. This is a unique one from Shane. I used to believe in calling or emailing my senator, but what's the use now? They've proven votes no longer count in this country. Does anyone ever believe we'll have a fair election again? Yes. Yes, I do. It's not going to be easy, but there are Amanda, the name of the organization is slipping my mind, but you and I have talked about them. They got Ohio to straighten up. Judicial Watch, is that it?
Oh, Judicial Watch. Yeah, so Judicial Watch sued the state of Ohio to clean up their voter rolls. And so there's still a lot of lawsuits that are going on. There's a lot of people that are involved in things. And there is that. Shane, I share your frustration. I really do. But if we're willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater, then we might as well just roll over, say rubber belly, and we're done. So we've got to figure out, we've got to play by their rules. We've got to play by our rules. And then the other part is that if you've got the stomach for it, get involved in politics at some local level to where all of a sudden they care more about what you think when you go to their fundraisers, when you show up at their office, when you sign wave, when you help, when you whatever, then they care more. It's as crazy as that is. I as a 2A advocate accidentally became my county chairman of my Republican Party. And I accidentally is really a word. And to the point where right now congressmen will call me and say, here's my cell phone. Call me if you've got anything we need to talk about. So it doesn't take but that level before they really care. So get involved, and it's got to do some good.
I love this comment, and Robert, this is exactly where I was going to go. Robert says, actually, that's what I did. I'm now a city councilman and mayor pro tem.
There you go.
If you don't like what the government is doing, if, for example, I'm not going to pick on anybody in specific, but if you want your county to be a Second Amendment sanctuary county and they won't do it, run for county commissioner. If you want your state to be a Second Amendment sanctuary state and they won't do it, run for House or Senate in your district. Especially if the person sitting there won't believe what you do.
Right. If they're a schlep, get involved.
Yes, absolutely. And you can do it. Believe it or not, I'm a Republican. I believe that the Republican Party, of the two that are major parties, the Republican Party most closely matches what I believe. I'm a libertarian. If there were a strong libertarian party, that would be me. But I'm also a realist. But believe it or not,
so are you a Republicitarian, right? So that kind of
I'm a registered member of the Republican Party. I have served in office in the Republican Party in the past when I had time. I don't even remember what having time is like anymore, but I have done that in the past. But I honestly believe I myself only talk guns on here, but I have beliefs that do not agree with the Republican Party. Because our Second Amendment rights are so important, I go with the Republicans. Is why I'm registered.
I look at it, I'm an 80%er. If I agree with them 80% of the way, that's more than I agree with the other side. So,
amen. Now, I want to get a couple other comments in here. We're going to go away from Biden's speech a little bit, and there's one way back that I'm not going to be able to put on screen, but I did see it, and I want to talk about it. But John says, our governor made Arizona a Second Amendment state. I think he meant Second Amendment sanctuary state. I wrote about that for the Gun Mag today. Great job, Arizona. The other thing that happened today, Tennessee's governor signed constitutional, or what I call permitless carry in Tennessee. The reason I don't like constitutional carry, if it were constitutional carry, you could carry inside your post office. You could carry inside the courthouse. You could carry inside the state legislature as your witness, as you're watching the legislators debate. If it were constitutional carry, that would all be allowed. So that's why I call it permitless.
I'm going to say stay tuned, because I believe that you're going to see a rash of Second Amendment sanctuary states and and lines where they're drawing states' rights, because between the stuff that's happening with the oil pipeline, between the stuff that's happening with marijuana, between the stuff that's happening with vaccines and the vaccine cards and show us your papers, and the Second Amendment attacks, the states are going, wait, states' rights here. Let's draw some lines. And I think you're just going to see a rash of it.
Okay. Preston says, the problem is you have to have money, lots of money to put in just to run for office. Even running for a very small local political office requires a big chunk of change that most middle-class people just don't have. That is kind of true. You can also just go knock on doors.
Well, the other part is that you know a lot of people, and if you tell them you're running for office, they're generous.
Yes.
And so it doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much for you to say, I'm going to run for the county commissioner and I need to have a fundraiser. Will you host one? You know, and it's amazing what people will pony up to help you be successful. And we've got a lot of people who run a campaign that they don't have their own personal money. So it's not like they're really deep pockets. They just figure out how to communicate, how to use the tools that are there. But he's right. Like a county commissioner race is going to be $30,000. You know, when you start to talk about like a Senate race is, well, I don't know, in Ohio, there's people with war chests of $4 million, $6 million, and they're like, yeah, I don't think that's enough. So I don't know.
You're talking U.S. Senate, yeah.
Yeah, U.S. Senate. I don't know how much money it takes to run for U.S. Senate, but it's a pile, and you can't expect people to have that in their pocket. So they have to figure out how to fundraise, and that's a hard thing to say. Hey, can you pony up $50 because I need a whole stack of friends to all pony up $50 or $100 or $10,000.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get to a series of comments here. Jeffrey Gray says, sounds like City Councilman Pointer represents a pretty conservative area. What if you live in LA County? A bit more of a climb here. No? You're right. It is. It is. But I still there's still a Republican Party there. They still need help. And if you just, I'm not pointing this at anybody, believe me, but if you just say, oh, geez, it's never going to happen here, I'm just going to have a beer, then nothing will ever happen. If you don't do it, no one else will either. Where are we at?
If you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. Reabsolutely. And to quote, to go back to a conference that Amanda and I attended a few years ago, a good friend, Yehuda Reamer, said, but did you ask? Is relating to something a little bit different, but yeah, if you don't try, you'll never know. Robert come back with, I did it with no money, knowing the low voter turnout, and I can't even talk tonight, Amanda, and the people who are not paying attention. Right. You can run a stealth campaign. You can run Facebook and a YouTube and social media campaign. Well, I'm gonna drop a company name here. The company Tactical Shit runs their entire marketing and advertising on Instagram. From the creation of that company to where they are now. And so let's say they started with the hundreds of dollars and they are now a multi-million-dollar company. Instagram.
Yep. All right. You know what? We are almost to the top of the hour. And so this is normally a 30-minute show. Yeah, and we're 25 minutes after that.
Who's counting?
Already. So, but we've gotten now well over 200 comments between Facebook and YouTube. So I think this is going to be a great place to go ahead and set this one down. Everybody, thank you so much for the comments. I wasn't able to get to a tenth of them, and they're scrolling faster than I can read them.
We'll go back and read some.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, there's a chain of them here, maybe from DJ Plano. Let me get some of these up because he makes some great points, and we're not quite to the top of the hour yet. He says, congressional candidate, an individual can seek the nomination of a state-recognized political party. An individual can run as an independent. He follows that up with independent candidates often must petition in order to have their names printed on the general election ballot. An individual can run as a write-in candidate. And here's the kicker. Total cost for the above, 0.
Right. Yeah, so you could be a write-in candidate. I mean, in a lot of cases, if you've got a voting history for one party or the other, they are looking for candidates. And just getting to know your county chairman and saying you're interested in running for something, they will keep you in mind and they will help you be successful because they are looking for good candidates to put a check mark in their win column.
And then one more from DJ Play Nice. Love this one. Extra innings every day, Paul.
Not on Mondays.
No, not on Mondays. I cannot do Mondays. Mondays we wrap up here. 30 minutes later, I'm going live with Polite Society Podcast.
With an hour and a half, another hour and a half long show. He, on Monday nights, you watch him and all you can see is like elbows and violently tapping fingers as he's trying to get it all coordinated. It's pretty funny, actually, if you were irreverent or anything.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I do think this is a great place to go ahead and shut it down, though. Amanda, before we go, what's been happening on Eye on the Target Radio and what's coming up?
Well, coming up this Sunday, I have Anthony Calandro. Next Sunday, I have Marjorie Taylor Greene. So both of those shows are going to be really, really exciting, really interesting, because those are very, very entertaining and informative speakers. And so there's that. So you can tune in by going to eyeonthetargetradio.com. We are live 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. And if you're on the West Coast, there's radio stations out there. If you're on the East Coast, we haven't got there yet. It's like, for some reason, we started on the West Coast and we're working our way east.
Okay. Well, and I want to mention, she's got this really fantastic, or at least he claims he is, video producer that also puts the video up on OpsLens and it goes on the Polite Society podcast, video, YouTube, and Facebook channels. So with that, I do think we're going to go ahead and shut it down. Amanda, thank you for joining me. And everybody, if you would, please tune back in tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central Time when Alex and Mike Uli will be joining us. And they're going to be alive again this week. They agreed to do that. They're going to be talking about, well, what to do if you have to use your handgun or any gun in self-defense. You're going to end up dealing with the police. What do you do when that happens? Join us tomorrow, 5 o'clock Central Time. Thank you for watching, everybody.